Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rene Plays Games podcast. This is the second one-player one-shot in the month of August before we roll into our new series, our new season, the prolonged solo series of Colossal starting next month. But I've gotten a few games recently that I've really wanted to play. This one just came in not that long ago. The PDFs came in. I think that physical shipping is happening soon, but I really wanted to play it. And this is Bow by Hatchlings Games. Hatchlings Games is a great duo of RPG designers. They make games for people of all ages, and you may know them from their games Inspirisles, Overisles, and still currently funding, at least when I'm recording this, not when it's going out, I don't think, Underisles, which is a trilogy of games, kind of Arthurian and legend, but it teaches both American and British Sign Language as part of its mechanics, which is really, really cool. They also did Dragon Dowser, which I did a one-shot of on this feed last year, and this game is going to play very similar to that. Both use the Carta system by Peach Garden Games, which is a card grid-based system. They also released Cryptid Creeks and a few others. I think they recently had a horror anthology that they crowdfunded, and yeah, they are prolific game designers and really, really great stuff. Their art is always really evocative and amazing. I enjoy their games, so I'm excited to run Bow right now and see what it's all about. I am going to do something a little different with my session of Bow. I recorded myself playing it, and I am also going to cut in and do a little bit of narration of scenes in addition to just listening to me play through it, so we'll see how this goes as an experiment. Here's a little bit about Bow. The Shoaling Festival is held once a year, where the strongest divers in Prelora take to the Basilica Ocean in search of relics from a sunken civilization. Their voyage is arduous, and many fail to even make it beyond the harbor. If they do reach the open ocean, destructive spore storms, dangerous sea life, cutthroat pirates, dragon hunters, and even rival competitors can leave a boat in pieces along with the dream of returning to a hero's welcome. The Shoaling is an annual festival where the whole community turns out to see their bravest prepare their vessels for the competition. There are sponsors, hoping to send out divers to bring prosperity to the archipelago's shores, because if they do bring back goodies, merchants will risk perilous voyages to come glimpse the treasures that are brought back. The divers themselves are venerated in Prelora society. They are devoted to building a vessel worthy of the ocean, the Basilica Ocean. Not all boats are equal, not all craftsmanship is the same, but the Shoaling Festival isn't just about the race. The divers must find enough relics to ensure that the Kingdom of Prelora survives the year ahead. Divers don fin suits to explore the seabed for relics, holding their breath until forced to resurface. Free diving takes a lot of strength and courage. Many struggle when the pressure becomes too great. One poor decision is likely to leave a diver permanently part of the architecture. And lastly, this is the same world as Dragon Dowser. Many dragons fled the mainland, seeking shelter from the tyrannical Mecharch, rulers seeking their eggs. The yolk of a dragon egg is said to contain the power to revive long, dormant machines used in warfare. Since the dragons appeared, some islanders have come to venerate the creatures and will do anything to protect them and their precious eggs. So Bow is a solo journaling game using the Carta system where you play a Preloran diver searching for old world relics as they navigate their way to a chosen marker and the completion of their voyage. The diver who finishes the race with the most relics is crowned the competition winner in a closing ceremony. Alright, we are going to grab a deck of cards with jokers. We are going to flip until we hit an ace, which is going to determine the marker we are going to go after, as well as our rival in this competition, in this Shoaling. So let's go ahead and flip. Okay, there it is. Well, that was right near the top. That is the Ace of Hearts. So the Ace of Hearts says, our rival is Robin Palmer. She may look sweet, but don't let her appearance fool you. She's an incredibly talented seafarer with a knack for finding her way through routes previously thought impossible to traverse. Her knowledge of the Basilica's moods seems at times to verge on the preternatural. Her natural charm makes her popular with the sponsors, and she's usually high on the list of competitors to win. Oh, okay, we got stiff competition. I don't think it really asks you to make a character, but I have a character in mind for this. I kind of want to play a young man who is small for his age. I don't think he is as strong and well-built and maybe matured as the rest of the competitors, young, strapping, like athletic types. I think he is capable, but I don't think he is a physical specimen, as some would say. I think he makes up for that by being clever and a hard worker, and he knows how to fix things and tinker and stuff like that. So that way, if he has a boat that gets out of the harbor, and if he has equipment that he needs to maintain, he's going to be able to do so. Let's go ahead and name this character just in case it comes up. His name is going to be Dominic Eisenia. Alright, now we are going to remove the jokers, place them off to the side, place our ace of hearts off to the side and shuffle, and then we are going to create a 6x4 grid of cards to create our area of the ocean. Oh yeah, get used to that sound again. We're playing Colossal soon. Alright, next we are going to put ourselves on one of these havens on the side of this grid, and we are going to mark down that we have 10 seaworthy tokens to start. This is going to be a resource that goes up and down as we explore this Gasilica Ocean. Alright, to play the game, we are going to move from the haven to any adjacent card, and then you can move from there in any direction you want, up, down, left, right, or diagonal. Each move spends a single token, that's just a resource, and then cards that we flip are going to either give us more tokens, deplete tokens, or have us roll a d6 to figure out how many we gain or lose. Then we're going to read the prompt that is on the card we flip over, read its entry, and we're going to journal a little scene about it. We are looking in this grid for the Ace of Hearts. If you discover a different ace other than the one you selected, it just gives you 6 tokens. That means that we reached this marker before our rivals and discovered a cache of supplies. If we ever run out of tokens, we can replenish their starting tokens at the secondary haven and head back out. However, if it happens a second time, Prelora's prosperity is left in the hands of your rivals. Once your chosen ace is reached, you return home to be crowned victor at the closing ceremony. Okay, so I think that's that. And yeah, I think we're just gonna get going. Okay, we begin. The first movement is free. I am moving into the very next one, and it is the Queen of Diamonds. Diamonds represent secrets. Oh boy. The Queen of Diamonds is positive. We are going to get 4 tokens. That's really great to start. And the description says, you come across a scene of destruction where a mech-arc vessel and its crew have come under attack. You find a crate of supplies and an unbroken dragon egg in the hands of the only surviving soldier. The prompt asks, what transpires between you and the soldier? And what do you do with the valuable egg? We see Dominic's ship, small in comparison as it approaches the wreck of the much larger mech-arc vessel. Dominic is hesitant. This isn't one of the old world relics the Shoaling is interested in, but there might be people who need help, or, worst case scenario, some helpful tech to scavenge. Dominic is small. He does not want to climb on board a mech-arc ship, especially one so imposing. So he calls out, hoping someone is there to answer. It takes a few seconds, but one soldier rushes to the starboard railing to wave out to Dominic. He's holding something wrapped in sheets or a blanket. The sailor explains that a dragon attacked the ship from the ocean, wrecking it. There's a small leak underneath, and it is slowly sinking. He is so thankful that Dominic is here, and he begs for passage to somewhere safe. Dominic asks him, where's everybody else? And his head goes low, and he says, I'm just the cook. I hid among the stores of food until it was all over, and when I came out, I saw the carnage and wreckage, and I found the crew. Well, let's just say all I found was this egg. Dominic offers to bring the sailor back to a haven in Prelora. We are going to spend one of the resources we just got to bring him back, on the condition that this sailor give the dragon egg to a dowser in Prelora and leave the mech arc life behind. To which the soldier happily agrees. Alright, so we actually go back. We're gonna lose one of our resources just because it was the first card next to this haven, and then we'll just go diagonal. We'll go to the one above that Queen of Hearts, and it is the 7 of Spades. If I recall correctly from Dragon Dowsers, 7s and 8s, I think, are the ones where you have to roll d6s. So let's see what happens. Spades are cards about survival. A 7 of Spades is negative chaos. We have to roll a d6 and we will lose that many of our seafaring tokens. The description says, storm spores are rare out on the ocean's open water, but you find yourself trapped in the midst of one. You take shelter as best you can to wait it out. When it's over, it's clear you've been blown off course. The prompt says, how do you react when you realize what's happened? What positive thing occurs as a result of this unexpected delay? Let's roll a d6 to see how many resources we lose. That is only 1. Wow, we got very lucky there. So we are still technically up 1 resource from when we started. Which, thinking back to that prompt with the sailor on the ship, probably represents him bringing food and a few things that the ship doesn't need anymore that Dominic might be able to use on his shoaling here. So sailing back out from Prelora after dropping off the mech arc sailor, Dominic tacks hard and rides a dangerous current to make up for lost time. He's riding along the shore to the north, and while he's not the strongest, he's no stranger to sailing. And he's helped design his own boat with some shipwrights with some very peculiar considerations. We see him unfurl a second sail off to the side of the boat and open a small door on the floor of the deck, which raises a strange pump that Dominic begins stomping down on rhythmically. Ahead, the spore storm clouds loom, and Dominic tries his best to adjust his course and avoid it, but they roll in faster than he expects. He just barely finishes tacking the sails and tying everything down when the spores blow into his ship's hull. He slams the door shut above his head and lights a candle to wait out the spore storm. With nothing else to do, Dominic begins going through everything he and his friends packed for his shoaling, which Dominic was very strict about the manifest, and finds, to his surprise, an envelope marked "Open in case of emergency" from his closest friends. This isn't an emergency per se, but curiosity gets the better of Dominic, so he opens it and reads the letter. "We knew you wouldn't be able to help yourself if you found this," it begins, and Dominic smiles and laughs as he reads his friends' good luck messages, along with a few friendly bets they've wagered on his return. When the storm finally passes, Dominic goes back above decks and smiles to a nice, clear day, the storms having rolled past. Alright, let's see, where are we going to go next? We can make our way towards this haven. I'm just going to go one over to the side, and that is a 4 of clubs. Clubs represent sea life. Oh, let's go. And the 4 of clubs is negative. It is -3 resources, so we are down to 8 now. You anchor your boat near a whale carcass, swimming over to gather its blubber for a hull sealant. However, the grisly scene attracts sharks faster than you anticipated. The prompt here says, how do you believe the whale died? And what causes the sharks to scatter, allowing you to reach safety? After the spore storm, it takes Dominic a few hours to reorient himself on the Basilica, using the few visible stars low on the horizon and the tools he's brought on board. Confident in his new course, he unfurls the sail, letting out a puff of spores when the wind catches it, and hopes to make up for the lost time so far in his first shoaling. Before long, a flurry of activity from seabirds catches his eye, and despite his earlier promise to make up for all that lost time and focus on the shoaling, he's going to take a short detour to investigate. As he gets closer, he sees a massive whale carcass floating in the Basilica's surface. This opportunity was definitely worth the detour, and he tethers his boat to the whale with a harpoon and begins harvesting bits of blubber for fuel to bring back to Praelora. The seabirds are easy to distract by throwing bits of meat and skin around for them to eat. All this cutting, though, lets blood into the water, and blood attracts sharks. Dominic's elbow deep in the whale, pulling out another large hunk of blubber when the first fin cuts through the nearby water, followed by another, and another. He yanks the harpoon free and runs to jump back to his boat, but the sharks are already tearing at the whale and just going into a frenzy. Luckily, all this damage to the whale is causing water to seep into it, and Dominic can feel it's probably going to start sinking instead of floating soon. He takes a few steps back, pulls on the rope tied around the boat's mast to reposition it away from the sharks, and starts to run. With one leap, which felt graceful and powerful to Dominic, but to his rivals or other competitors probably would have looked painful, he hauls himself back into his boat and gets out before the sharks find any reason to chase down another potential prey. Okay. Well, with that, we are going to flip our next card, moving on to the next one, and it is going to be the 6 of Diamonds. Once again, diamonds being secrets, and 6 is negative, but it is the most minimal of the negatives. We're only going to take -1 of our seafaring tokens here, and the description says, you follow a winding trail which seems to have been lost to time. It leads to an enormous mound with a stone carving at the summit. Unfortunately, the stunning views from the top suggest you've drifted off course by at least a day. The prompts are, what does the carving depict? And why do you believe it was created? Alright, so it sounds like Dominic found an island. That's cool. Sailing away from the whale carcass, Dominic is on track, focused on the shoaling and recovering the artifact from the marker provided to him for this year's competition, and is sailing away when a small island provides an opportunity for rest maybe, or to get a look and get his bearings once again, because he has turned around, he has gotten a little off track with the whale carcass going to investigate and everything like that, so he brings his boat to the shore and ties it up and begins to look around. It's a small island, not big enough to be occupied year-round by any means, not enough resources to sustain anybody, but finds that there is an old, worn path. Following it up to the summit of this small island, he finds a great overlook, looking at the surrounding ocean, the Basilica around him, and finds a strange carving on the top of this island. It's actually almost like a perfect half of a circle dome of a stone that just juts out from the top of this hill on this island, and it looks like there are carvings that if you actually walk around the circle and starting at the bottom and winding their way up, you can follow it and it tells a story. It is actually an ancient Praeloran creation myth. And not only that, there is a historical account of a peoples, an ancient culture that used to come through here. It appears that it was visited regularly and updated with more names and great achievements and stories of these people. But the main carving is that of a story of a sea dragon who laid an egg on this island, and then as a storm approached, it had to hide the egg beneath the island in the ocean waters. As we said before, Dominic is not a large athletic person, not the kind of person that would be normally representing a team or being sponsored for the shoaling, but he is smart, he is learned, and I think that he is familiar with a lot of the stories of these islands, of this world. The reason this was probably created was as a reminder that it is our duty to protect life and what we live alongside in the face of change and the world in general when it threatens to destroy things. And as Dominic finishes walking around this stone carving atop this small island, he looks out at the ocean, the Basilica all around him, knowing that he is here on a competition to retrieve relics to bring back to his people, to his place, and ensure that they can soldier on and carry on. And he is hit with a mix of both hope for the future and renewed determination to see this done, and also a little bit of a sadness that it's come to this, and that there are peoples and other cultures and places in the world that are maybe so selfish or are so destructive, like the mech arcs from Dragon Dowser, that this is even necessary. I think that he maybe dives below the island just to see if he can find any caves or anything like that. Maybe there is a dragon egg down here, but he finds nothing, and that's represented in the loss of one resource seafaring token that we have here. And he gets back on his boat, consults his charts and maps, and begins to go on. Alright, we're gonna just continue heading west, I think, or, right to left on our grid here, and flip this next card. Another queen. This is the Queen of Clubs, so that's gonna be good for us. That's more resources. Once again, clubs are sea life, and a queen is very positive. The description says, swimming through a narrow crevice, you arrive at a cavern filled with abundant sea life, gathered around a barnacle-encrusted machine. The prompts read, what rare sea life can you see? And what was the machine's original purpose here? We get 4 seafaring tokens for this, which is going to bring us up to 8, which is pretty good. And I think that we'll just retcon and say that the dive below this island looking for that dragon egg, that's where we're going to swim through this crevice and find a cavern. So we haven't left this island yet. As Dominic swims down in his fin suit with his equipment to investigate under the island, perhaps looking for something that was portrayed in the stone carving atop this island's summit, he finds a narrow crevice and swims through, pulls himself through, careful not to rip his fin suit, and finds himself in a large underwater cavern filled with abundant sea life. In the middle of it, seemingly impossible to have gotten in here through that narrow crevice, is a machine. And it is covered in barnacles. It's clearly been down here for a long time. As Dominic swims a little closer to investigate, a lot of fish suddenly swarm, and he didn't see them because he instantly recognizes them as ghost fish. Ghost fish are transparent, but when they are threatened, they have a bioluminescent defense mechanism where they glow. And if it was just one of these fish, it would have trailed a small light, distracting whatever potential predator may be lurking, but when it is a teeming school of ghost fish, it is an enormous just wall of bioluminescent fish swimming around, and it is very disorienting to Dominic as he attempts to get his bearings and figure out what is going on here. But as he swims down and gives them space, they scatter, and a good amount of them leave the cavern, but enough stay and are in a state of distress at the moment that they are still lit up with this defense mechanism, and it bathes this cavern in a strange glow from these fish. And Dominic gets a little bit more detail of this machine, which, as he gets closer and begins inspecting it, finds that it is definitely of Mech-Arc design. This is definitely from the Mech-Arc's teams of people who go out looking maybe for dragons, looking for dragon eggs, right? And if there is a carving on the top of this island of a story of a dragon who, in order to protect her egg, brought it down below this island like this, there is a machine down here, but it is long since out of commission, probably impossible to recover or repair out of this cavern. But this could be useful. I think that Dominic spends some time maybe taking apart pieces and gathering little bits that may be usable in the future. At the very least, it is some mech arc technology that he can bring back to Prelora and warn people about, or find ways to defend against, or find ways to break them down, so that way if ever they needed to stand up against the mech arc or protect dragons or what have you, they could do so. Also, this cave is pretty easy pickings for fish and seaweeds and other things that I think Dominic stocks up on some food and leaves without a dragon egg, but maybe some interesting information. Alright, the +4 from the Queen brings us to 8, and then we're going to move to the next card, which will bring us to 7, and that next card from the Queen of Clubs is... ooh, a 6 of spades. We've gone 6, Queen, 6. All right. Spades represent survival, and a 6 is a negative, but again, it's only that -1, so that's going to bring us down to 6, and it says, the days spent out on the open water with no land in sight are beginning to take their toll. One patch of water looks very like another most of the time, and you feel yourself slipping into hopelessness. The prompts are, what do you do to try and shake the malaise? And what steps do you take to prevent it from ever happening again? After that island, Dominic has been trying to get back on track. We were blown a little off course, so just as a little heads up, I basically made myself go back down and to the right, like in the wrong direction if I was going in one way. And I think that Dominic knows that this competition isn't just about getting lucky and finding your marker first. It's about being determined. It's about powering through these moments like this, where it would be so easy to just turn around, sail back to Prelora, and no one would hold any ill will against him, especially him. He's small, he's clever, but outside of his closest friends who bet on Dominic, most of the people probably bet against him, and wouldn't be surprised if he came back empty-handed. And that hurts, when Dominic lets himself think about that. But it also motivates him. And if nothing else, he can go through the motions. He starts checking his small boat top to bottom. He checks all of his equipment and gear and maps, so he's ready when the opportunity presents itself. He's not going back empty-handed. And while he'd love for this feeling to never happen again, he spends some time. He goes over and reads the letter his friends wrote him again, and he sets a realistic expectation of how much more time he can be out here on his own. How long his food's gonna last, how much damage his gear can take. He goes over his map and his journal, and he comes up with a course. And he says, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take this course, and if by the end of it I don't find anything, I'll head back. But he wants to find that relic, and he wants to go back home with pride. Okay, another -1 from that 6 brings us to a 5, and we're going to go, you know what, we're going to go diagonal bottom left, flip the next card. Oh my gosh, another queen, the Queen of Spades. So we've gone 6 queen, 6 queen. All right, the Queen of Spades. Again, survival. The Queen of Spades says, you notice an unusual weather pattern forming in the east. Many hours of studying meteorology means you know to avoid that particular area while your rivals sail straight for it. A devastating tornado touches down right by them while you spend time searching for treasures in a different spot. The prompts are, what do you witness as the storm takes shape? And how does the aftermath benefit you in terms of resources? Ooh, a good storm out at sea. Coming out of his malaise and being down on himself, this hopelessness, Dominic has charted his course, and he is making his way there. He's heading southwest, and then he's going to turn straight west and come back up north. in the Basilica, and behind him in the east, he actually spies some of the rivals he's up against. He sees Robin in her very recognizable ship with a bright red sail on it, and she is sailing right for the horizon in the east. And when Dominic looks, takes down his spyglass, he puts it right back up and looks again and sees that there are two separate fronts that are heading for one another. He can see the clouds beginning to swirl and move, and then it all happens very fast, where these two fronts collide in a towering formation of clouds that go from bright white and puffy in the sky to darkening and swirling around one another, creating a eye in the middle of it. The friction of the different temperatures of air and everything begin to bring these storm clouds lower, and it looks like it's not only going to open up with rain, but maybe storms are going to come in as well. And that's when the first water spout, the tornado, touches down and the water begins being swirled up from the surface of the Basilica. Dominic turns and sails as fast as he can in the opposite direction. But he's not the only one fleeing this storm. Plenty of sea life also swim out of the areas that are being pummeled by these sea spouts and crushing waves. And with a little bit of foresight, he puts some nets down, he trawls some hooks and things like that, and manages to score quite a bit of fish and food in fleeing this storm. However, I will say, I think that despite this being a competition, I think Dominic, we see his face as he is sailing away from this storm, and he's very frequently looking over his shoulder, looking worried about Robin's decision to sail into this storm. But it did say that her ability to read this ocean borders on the preternatural, so maybe she knows something. Let's flip the next card. The 3 of spades. Wow, we're doing a lot of spades lately, a lot of surviving out here on the oceans, and 3 is bad. That's going to be a big negative. Let's see what it says. A shadow blots out the sun as you chart a course for your next promising dive. A couple of rare storm dragons clash overhead, their airborne battle conjuring a furious thunderstorm. How perfect is that? That's crazy. The prompts say, how do you avoid the lightning strikes, and how does the drama above you play out? Oh, this is perfect. Suddenly, Dominic realizes his rival wasn't sailing into the storm. She was sailing through the storm. Dominic begins to panic as the dragons chase one another through the sky. They're getting closer to the course he's charted to get away from the storm, but he knows they'll overtake him in no time. He has 2 options: tie everything down and bunker down below decks, or look for a safe place to get to fast. I'm just gonna flip the next card to see if it gives me any idea. Ooh, okay, Jack of Diamonds. So there is an island nearby. Okay. As the storm dragons continue their dance and battle overhead, lightning bolts arc through the sky following their flight patterns, each roar echoed by thunder. Every flap of their wings sends a gust of wind that threatens to blow Dominic into the dangerous shallows near the island. Despite this, Dominic cannot help but stare up from the deck at this rare spectacle. Lightning flashes and strikes, but luckily it's between the dragons and it doesn't really ever come down towards the Basilica's surface to threaten his ship. And maybe it's because he can't take his eyes off of the dance and the fight, but he couldn't move his legs if he wanted to. His boat is just coasting and sailing through this storm. And when they've flown by and they take their battle farther out over the ocean elsewhere, Dominic and his boat just coast slowly towards this isle of refuge. And he sees not only a group of people on the shore waving him down, panicked about him being out here, sailing in this storm, but he sees a strange, glinting shape half submerged in the shallows. That worked out so well, and I peeked ahead a little bit at this Jack of Diamonds, so let's just run right into it. The Jack of Diamonds. Diamonds, of course, represent secrets. So the Jack says, "A broken machine half submerged off an island has something clutched in its fist. You eventually prise it open to discover a pristine relic." The prompts say, "What do you believe caused the machine's destruction, and what makes the relic particularly valuable?" We get 3 resources for this, C tokens, so we are going to be all the way up to 6 after all things said and done, so we're doing okay on tokens. Let's write this one out. As Dominic approaches the shore of this island, he looks down from the edge of his small boat. The storms have blown by, and there's little bits of debris and little things in the water, but otherwise, it's crystal clear in many areas of these shallows. But there is a large section along the shore where this machine is half buried, and it's like a plume of turbid, murky sand, almost. It almost looks like a wet peninsula of beach. But Dominic's boat skims along the side of it and cuts right through it like water. When Dominic hazards a feel with his hand skimming along the surface, it pulls down on his arm pretty aggressively. He almost goes overboard and gets sucked in, but his reflexes are fast enough to prevent that. Something strange about this murky water must have pulled and held this machine in the shallows here. He goes and anchors his boat to this half-submerged machine, which has definitely rusted all along the bottom bits of it. That's always constantly submerged, and you can see where the tides come in and out, and there is a clear line, further up the chest to the shoulder, and this one hand, this arm is extended upwards to keep whatever it's clutching out of the seawater. Eventually, Dominic uses his tools, pries it with leverage and all of this, and it pops open, and inside is a dowsing crystal, which is used to track dragons and their eggs. These are pretty rare outside of the Mecharch's lands, and they use them primarily for ill uses, to find and kill dragons or steal their eggs to power their machines. So this is a pretty significant find for Dominic, and the potential here is pretty great to bring this back to Praelora. So after this, he is going to head to the shore, spend some time on this island. Let's flip the next card. King of Hearts. Oh, that's so close to our Ace of Hearts, which is what we're looking for. Let's see what the King of Hearts says. Have we had a Hearts yet? We have not. This is our first Hearts. So Hearts represent seafarers. And the King says, oh my god, it's perfect. This is crazy. This is crazy. I don't know how people come up with oracles and prompts. It's so good. Thanks to the efforts of your sponsor, details of your daring exploits have reached far and wide. As a result, you receive an unprecedented amount of support from islanders. The prompts say, what feat in particular has earned you your reputation, and what name have you been given as a result? Kings give you +5 seafaring tokens, so I think that this makes so much sense. We literally described him sailing out of a storm. Okay, here it goes. Having sailed out from underneath a storm dragon battle in the sky unscathed, the people of this island find Dominic and cheer for him as he sails to safety. Not only is this crazy for someone to do, someone like Dominic solo sailing in the Shoaling for this year, but he's young. He is not the traditional archetypal hero sailor that people would expect, so they're even more impressed. And they start to spread this tale far and wide, and it just grows more and more exaggerated. By the time Dominic is going to get back to his city and Prelora, it's going to have been exaggerated so much so that it's not even close to the truth. But Dominic is not one to have ever gotten this kind of attention before, especially positive, so he's not going to go out of his way to correct people, especially when he sees the looks of his rival divers from the Shoaling. And I think that the nickname that is going to be given to Dominic is going to be Storm Dancer. And they are going to give Dominic plenty of things that he needs. He does some trading here. He unloads some heavy stuff that he's found and gives it to the people, and they give him plenty of resources and things that he needs. They retie a bunch of his cords that have been fraying and things like that, and we are swimming in resources up to 9 after we flip this next card, which is going to be the 4 of Diamonds. Okay, diamonds being secrets, 4 being negative, so let's see, hopefully it's not too bad. A 4 is -3, so we can deal with that. That brings us down to 6. And the 4 of Diamonds says, there's a promising excavation site located on your map, let's say given to us by these islanders, and it appears to have been undiscovered by your rivals so far. However, when you dive there, you unearth a patch of some oily, glutinous substance that clings to your whole body and threatens to drag you down. What is the source of the substance? What unexpected effect does it have on your fin suit and equipment? And with this, I mean, what is this? Our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11th card out of 24 in this grid. We are halfway there. We are struggling. We're going to have to find this ace soon. Following a mark on the map that these islanders have given Dominic after being called Storm Dancer, he sails in this direction to the far northern sections of the Basilica Ocean. It is a pretty difficult location to get to, but it is this really cool island where a handful of sea spires kind of break up the ocean currents and tides, and inside of it, it's not quite a whirlpool, but it's almost like this very still, and this section of ocean here, you can tell it doesn't flow through these sea spires very often, so there's like a lot of almost calm waters in the middle of an otherwise constantly moving ocean around it. And Dominic knows he's going to have to free dive, so we see him putting on his fin suit and his goggles and his breathing apparatus and all of this stuff to do his free dive, and he dives down and finds that this is a really interesting site where at the bottom all of these sea spires actually connect to one central underwater location, almost like fingers coming up from a palm that is facing the surface of the water. And as he free dives down to it and begins looking, there's a whole lot of coral that have just grown all around all of the underwater portions of this site. And Dominic begins tapping and breaking bits of the underwater coral that surround a potential relic that he's trying to find. And in doing so, he punctures something gelatinous or kind of fleshy. It is the bell of a Nidarian, like a giant jellyfish, which shudders in reaction. Tentacles burst out of holes in the coral, and this substance gushes out of this strange creature. It's amorphous, and yet it seeks Dominic as he begins swimming up towards the surface to get away from whatever has accidentally upset here. Dominic is swimming up and away to observe, but this strange, oily substance gets on him before he's halfway to the surface, and he's going to have to make a decision fast. And I think that he actually has to shed his fin suit because it sticks and weighs him down, and he is not the strongest of people out here in the Shoaling. So we see as he unclasps and unzips and loses a good chunk of his fin suit. I think all that's left is whatever he's wearing on his head, and it's just going to sink down towards this site below the surface. And his head pops up above the ocean, and he takes a deep breath and climbs onto his boat. Some of his equipment has this substance on it and is gunked up, but is not immediately kind of spreading around, so he quickly puts that away and secures it somewhere where it's not going to spread anywhere else, thinking, hey, maybe we can have somebody study this back in Prelora and find out what this is, or if there's a use for it, or if there's a way to prevent this from maybe hurting or drowning anyone else in the future. But unfortunately, we've lost our fin suit, and that's going to spell a lot of trouble, depending on how many more cards we're going to have to flip to... Never mind, we don't have to flip any more cards. The very next one was our Ace of Hearts. Oh, wow, we just got so lucky. All right, let's look up what happens here. When you reach your ace, I believe it's just, that's the game. So let's see here. Once your chosen ace is reached, you return home to be crowned victor at the closing ceremony. And yeah, it says to do one more journal entry, writing about the reaction from the crowd, sponsors gloating, or family's pride. Well, first we see, after this, there's a threat. There's a moment where that hopelessness, that malaise, once again strikes Dominic as he is sailing, because he doesn't have his fin suit. If this is going to require a dive that he needs that for, that could mean the end of his shoaling and a failure. However, he is sailing and he's consulting his charts, and he knows he's got to be close to his marker. And it's not long before he does recognize a few obviously distinguishing landmarks and things, and he presses his speed in his small boat and eventually finds and gets to the marker that has been set up for his shoaling, and he recovers a relic. I wonder what that relic could be. I'm not sure. I'm going to open up the Dragon Dowser book and just see if there's anything cool in there. I've kind of been riffing on my Dragon Dowser lore from my other one-shot for some of this stuff. We've already gotten an egg from that Mecharch ship that got attacked. What if this is actually like an old map of the world, and it tells about the types of dragons and the places you could find them, and it's something that could kick off an entire new type of expedition in the future. And for Dominic, this is exactly the kind of thing he likes, right? This is going to be more information which can make more better informed decisions for the greater whole. And the whole montage we get of him sailing home, he is careful not to get it wet, not to get it wrecked or do any damage to it, but he can't help but occasionally pull it out. And we see him even at night under the stars. He's got a small candle burning and he's looking at it, trying to make sense of this old map. This is an old world relic, so the old world being ancient depictions of what was understood at the time. When he arrives back in Prelora, there is a huge celebration. All of the rival divers have returned, some of them having been here for some time, having had to turn around for whatever reason a while ago. He does see his rival, Robin Palmer, and she looks like she has brought home a lot. Her sponsor is very happy, but all of their hoards and what they've brought home, all of their treasures and scores and things like that, pale in comparison to Dominic coming home with this ancient map, and in addition to the other things that he has found along his travels. And there is a little bit of deliberation among the ceremonial, council and things like that, but it is not long before Dominic is crowned this year's winner and champion of the Shoaling. He is standing there. Everyone else kind of just, has a good foot or so on him, but that's not the important part. It is that he kept going. He never stopped in the face of hardship. There are rumors swirling. A chant goes up, Storm Dancer, and Dominic kind of just smiles and smirks and knows the ridiculous lengths that story has been exaggerated well beyond anything he actually did, but he enjoys the moment. His family runs up on stage, gives him a big hug, and his sponsor, who probably was not the biggest one, right? Like, if there's big sponsors giving money, they gave it to the other divers, these people who look like the kinds of people who'd succeed. So I think it's an even more just heartwarming underdog moment when the sponsor, this is going to change their life too, right? They were the one who sponsored young Dominic, now known as Storm Dancer. It's a great day. The shoaling has come to a close. We have not lost any divers. Plenty has been found and brought back to ensure that Prelora survives at least another year. And that's where we're going to end this session. That was fun. I really like Carta games. I like how Hatchlings Games approaches them. This plays almost identical to Dragon Dowser, set in the same world. Very cool vibes. The art is very evocative. The prompts are really good. And it's very easy to play this game. Flip cards, track your resources, and journal. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you check out Bow, which is going to be coming out soon, if not already out digitally. I'll double check that. If it is, I will provide a link in the description. If not, I'll send a link of where you will be able to get it in the future. I just recently got my digital rewards fulfilled, so it may be slightly down the line. Hatchlings Games, if you listen to this, hopefully I did your game justice. Thank you for such great work. And if you like what you're hearing, follow me on the social medias. Reach out to me with games you think that I should be playing or at least have on my radar or anything like that. You can email me at reneplaysgamespod@gmail.com. Leave a rating and review on your podcatcher of choice so more nerds find me, and then we can all be nerds together and talk. And if you want to do that, you should join the DMs After Dark Discord, which is always linked in the description of my podcast episodes. It's very small, but it is very fun and friendly, and everyone there is really great. We talk a lot about just life and games and nerd stuff. And yeah, I think that's it. Very much looking forward to starting a new series soon, but there's one more episode in between this release and Colossal Episode 1, which is going to be a mining media. So if you haven't already, read or listen to Dungeon Crawler Carl and get on that train because it is so fun, and I'm going to be talking about it next week. So until then, maybe this is bad advice, but I dare you to go outside in a storm. Just for a second.